Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to take a look at a brand new product from our friends over at St. Louis Art Supply. In the past, I have reviewed their Tonic watercolor mixing set in the large ceramic pans, and it came with these 6 colors plus an empty pan, which I put some burnt umber in. And I just want to show you their dot cards, which are humongous. They are probably like I would say probably an eighth to a quarter pan worth of paint on those dot cards if you want to try it out before investing. And these are also available individually. There are more colors available now. The set of 6 with one extra pan is $95, and you can get the colors go for between $15 and $18, I think, in that ballpark. And what we're going to look at today are their tube watercolors. So they have expanded from those really giant ceramic pans, which I love, but are inconvenient for some people because, I mean, like I had to find a tin that those would fit in. It doesn't, you know, if you're working out of a studio palette or you're working with a metal palette where you put half pans in, that's not going to be that convenient. So now they offer half pans and tubes as well. And we're going to look at their tubes today. And let's see what else we have in this box. We have a couple stickers. The sticker is like of a lino cutting thing, and they're offering printmaking supplies on their website now. I saw an ad on Facebook that said, and Tonic did send, St. Louis Art Supply did send me these to review, so I want to be completely upfront and honest about that. I did not buy these. These were sent to me. And we have a sticker here, which is, I'm going to put that on the tin I put my watercolors in. And they always send these really handy bookmark rulers, which you can tuck into the back pocket in a sketchbook and then always have a little ruler with you. And that's super handy. I have another one that I laminated with packing tape, but when I trimmed it, I didn't trim it. I should have used my paper trimmer to trim it because it got a little wonky, so I'm just going to leave this one as is and hope for the best. And then something they added into this order for free was just a little, it says Artist Manual Volume 1. I guess they're doing these little kind of DIY projects, and I think that is so neat that, you know, you get like a bonus little project there. And since I love bookbinding, I'll just stick this in to one of my bookbinding books, so that's what I do when I get it, like an extra pattern or instruction thing that I want to keep. Rather than trying to keep track of stuff, I stick it in a related book that I would go to when I needed like a particular type of project or a particular type of instructions, and that way I don't lose it. So I thought that was a really nice pack in, because it's like, oh, it's something handy, it's something useful, it's just a sheet of paper, so if you don't want it, you can recycle it, it's not a big deal. But I thought that was just kind of cool. Now here's what we have been looking for: these beautiful tubes of watercolor paint. So these are 12 ml tubes. They range in price, I was just peeking on the website, it seems like they range in price from about $9 to $12, or this complete set, if you want the complete set of all the colors they're currently offering, it's $129. I believe they have free shipping over there. I'm thinking it's like $69, but don't quote me on that. I know that this porcelain set shipped free, and that was $95, so it's got to be around in that ballpark somewhere. I no longer have a affiliate link or coupon code, but yeah, I don't think that's terribly priced for that much paint for $129. Let's take a look at the tubes here. Pretty good size. 12 milliliter, 0.4 ounces. We've got Federal Color. Oh, this is all made in the USA too, which I think is pretty impressive, because the less a product has to travel to get to you, the better. And the price is pretty affordable. And if the quality of these matches the quality of what's in the ceramic pans, I'm going to be very happy. We've got our pigment information. We have PW6. We've got number 360, which is their product number or their color number for this. It shows that it's opaque. Oh, that 8-star, that must be the blue wool scale, I would say. That's probably what that is, because blue wool scale is a Lightfast rating that goes 1 through 8, 8 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and anything you want to be like above 5 and 6 to be considered Lightfast. And then on the little packaging, which is beautiful, but I don't know how necessary it is. I guess it keeps the tubes from getting bursted because it is pretty sturdy. You've got like it's like a textured paper, looks like watercolor paper, made in the United States, conforms to ASTM D4236, and that is the ASTM rating that deals with toxicity, not the one that deals with light fastness. That's a totally different testing protocol that companies need to pay extra to have done. Manufactured by Federal Color, 4011 Papin Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63110. And you got a little barcode on there. A very attractive packaging. And I love that you have the information on the package as well as on the tube, because you're probably not going to hang on to the little cardboard boxes. Well, actually, we can just take these all out. I might just save the wrappers just so that I might just glue that down onto my paper so I have all the information on the swatch and I don't have to cover it up, or I don't have to copy it over. We've got Federal Red PR 254 and also a light fastness of 8, and it looks like semi-transparent. Is that what that is? I'm just looking at I don't see transparency on the box. I'm only seeing it on the tube. Well, let's go into something that we know is transparent. That would be Phthalo Green. This is called Phthalo Evergreen. I'm not sure what you think about the I think the packaging is lovely, and it definitely adds a certain amount of like bouginess to the product, but I don't know if it's necessary, especially with how well they package the package. PG7, let's see. Okay, so just by process of elimination, we can see that opaque colors have the black filled in black dot. Semi-transparent colors have the circle with lines through it, and then fully transparent colors have the empty circle. So that's what our opacity rating looks like. I don't know how impressive or how interesting you find this, so skip ahead if you want to get to like the swatching. This one is Prussian Blue PB27, and it looks like it's semi-transparent. It's got a light fastness of 7 on the blue rule scale. Prussian Blue is that color that it can turn brown in sunlight, but it does revive when it's put in the dark for a while. And then we have Carbon Black PBK6. That is opaque, and it is light fast. We have got Signal Yellow, a very bright, warm yellow. It is PY65. It is semi-transparent and a light fastness of 7. It's not too bad to open. I don't think anyone would really have a problem getting it open, but it does. I mean, it does. It's just one more step. Okay, here we have Quinacridone Magenta PR 122, and it is transparent with a light fastness of 7 on the blue wool scale. Everything's been single pigment so far. That's pretty cool. Oxide Yellow, which is like a yellow ochre. And I'm not having trouble opening these, but that's not to say that somebody with arthritis or some other issue might not have a little trouble with that, but they're no more difficult. Actually, I think because it's like a thick cardstock type material, it opens pretty easily. This is rated as opaque, light fastness 8, and PY42, which is your synthetic iron oxide, I believe, your yellow ochre color. Phthalo Blue Reddish. Ooh, Phthalo Blue Reddish. Oh, that is interesting. We usually don't see a phthalo blue red shade when you're looking at a limited palette, so that's kind of interesting. We have PB15:1. That is a light fastness of 8, and it is fully transparent. That's interesting. So that's kind of like your more neutral. I still don't find that a phthalo red shade to be very warm, but it does have it's a little bit more neutral than your regular phthalo blue or your phthalo cyan, which we have a phthalo cyan right here. PY, whoa, that's a typo. That should be PB 15:3. Let's see if the typo is on the tube itself. Nope, there's no typo on the tube. The typo is only on the box, so that's good. I'll have to mention that to them. They might want to reprint those labels. And we have a fully transparent color. It is a light fastness of 8. And yeah, that's what we would expect. Now we have ultramarine blue, the color I use most out of any color. This is one I have to refill the most often. I remember a couple of years ago during the pandemic, there was talk of an ultramarine blue shortage because one of the factories that makes it, and there was only like 2 or 3 in the world, was shutting down. And I was a little worried until I counted out all the ultramarine tubes I had in my stash, and I was like, okay, I can slow my roll a bit. We have PB29, which is your typical ultramarine blue pigment. It is semi-transparent and a light fastness of 8, which I would agree with. So far, I'm agreeing with all of their assertions of the light fastness and the transparency, and I feel like they are definitely being on the side of not overselling either of those products. Like, and I would say meaning that we would desire a transparent, fully transparent color and a fully light fast color. I feel like they are definitely not overselling what transparency of these products. We have a permanent yellow, a PY154, a light fastness of 8, and it is transparent. That's really nice. A lot of times with your cool yellow, you get a PY3, which I'm not against a Hansa yellow, but recently, I would say over the past 20 years or so, how recent is that? There's been some skepticism as to how light fast the PY3 is, because Golden does independent testing on theirs, and they said they've seen a change in the PY3 they were using 30 years ago and the PY3 they're getting now. So the fact that they've gone with a more reliable pigment here, I think is really great. And we got Pyrrole Orange, which is a more expensive pigment. You'll see that in their, if you're buying these individual tubes, this is one of the more pricier ones. This is PO73, light fastness of 8, and it's semi-transparent. So let's put these in order of how I'm going to want to put them in my palette. I started filming this twice, so I'm not sure if I showed you this little palette that I'm going to put these in. This is a little kind of business card holder palette that my friend Rosie made me a couple of years ago. And I think I want to put the sticker on there so I'll know what's in here, and will it fit? I might have to trim it down. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to trim it down. I might just trim the circle out. I think that would actually be really, really cute. Maybe I'll use my little circle trimmer, I think, for that. I had to go in and trim it with my scissors because I had snagged it. But anyway, that gives me a nice little I don't know, way to see what I have, I should say. And I think I'm just going to trim off this and put that on the edge of my palette, so if it's on its side, I'll be able to see exactly what it is. I don't have a label maker, so if I can reuse something like this, that's super, super handy. I'm going to stick that right on the edge. I'm going to do it right side up though, so I'll know which way to set it down. Hey, look at that! That's clever. Alright. Okay, so let's put this in order of the way I want to organize them. I like to go in kind of a color wheel format, but obviously we have, we don't have it. It's not a circle, it's in a rectangle. But I'm going to pair things up. So we've got, I'll start with my reds. I'm going to start with the cool red, quinacridone magenta, then federal red, and then we go to pyrrole orange. Then we'll want to have the warm yellow, cool yellow. So it's that signal yellow for warm yellow, permanent yellow for cool yellow, phthalo evergreen, because that's where that would go. And then I'd want my phthalo cyan next, then my Prussian blue, then my phthalo blue reddish, and then my ultramarine blue. So my split primary, I do phthalo cyan and ultramarine blue. Then we'll do probably black, white, and yellow ochre. I mean, I could put the yellow ochre in there. There's no brown? Oh, I didn't open this brown. Jeez Louise. I'm like, wait a minute, how could there be no brown? That's a glaring oversight. Let's see what we have here. We have Oxide Red PR 101, and that is opaque and light fastness of 8. So there we have that. I could even put brown, the Oxide Red in here, but I usually like to keep my neutrals separate. Obviously, do whatever you want to do, but that's what I like to do. Okay. It's always a little nerve-wracking to fill a palette, isn't it? So let's see how these come out of the tube, because sometimes that's an issue. So we'll start off with Quin Magenta. Ooh, got a nice big wide neck there. No odor that I can smell. And let's give it a good little fill. See how it comes out. Easy to come out. It's pretty liquid. Neck stays nice and clean. Now we've got the Federal Red. These are easy to unscrew. I will say that they have a nice big cap and a nice big neck. So the only issue that I would say somebody might have here would be that if you have those, like, you know how Etcher has those really tiny palettes with the teeny tiny little holes, they're little ceramic palettes. I think it would be difficult to fill those palettes with these, or any other tiny, like, really mini palette, you know, like some of those little tiny little wooden ones that clip to your sketchbook. You may struggle filling this because the hole is really wide. But in general, I'd rather have a larger neck tube. This is kind of very similar to the necks on the larger. No, they're probably not as big as the one on Da Vinci. And now I think of it, they're probably smaller than that. Very easy to unscrew caps, though. I do like that. So after I get these screwed out, poured out, no separation either. Once I get these all poured out, I'm going to make a swatch sheet, and we'll be able to swatch them and compare them with our ceramic pans. See if they differ. I bet they don't, because they're all made in-house in St. Louis, Missouri. They're pretty, aren't they pretty? They're quite liquid, which makes pouring them very easy. It'll probably shrink up a bit. There's a little bubble there, but no binder separation, which is good. Although with another benefit of having a wide neck tube is that you can put a toothpick in there and give it a stir if you have to. I mean, you could do that anyway with a smaller one, but it's just easier with a larger one. Prussian blue. Prussian blue is a little thicker and pastier than the other colors, which is not a huge surprise because it tends to be. I don't know why. I think it must be whatever the pigment is. I did buy a pot of Prussian blue pigment powder when I was in France last year, so I could make some Prussian blue paint. Phthalo blue reddish. So if I was when I'm filling up a palette like this, generally I'll fill it up. I will let it shrink down, and then I'll top it off. Once, sometimes twice. Ultramarine blue. And oftentimes when I'm making a custom palette, what I could do is I could do two wells of ultramarine blue, or I could have put a half pan of ultramarine blue in there, since it is a color I use a lot, but I haven't done that. Carbon black. I probably don't need to put too much of that. I don't tend to use black or white too often, if at all. But we're going to squirt them out because, and the white is quite pasty. So the white and the Prussian blue are the only ones that have any sort of different texture so far. Oxide yellow, that's one I use a lot. I think I'm going to give a little space between. Actually, maybe I won't, because if I do want to put an extra thing of ultramarine blue, I'll probably want it there. Not that I couldn't move these around, because they are in half pans. And then Oxide Red, which is going to suffice as our brown. I do think it's kind of interesting that they don't have like a PBR7, like a burnt umber. I think burnt umber would be an excellent addition. I'd put it right there, because you can see how warm that that brown is. So far so good. I'm not seeing anything to give me any trouble. I'm going to make my swatch sheet and then we'll come back and swatch after this. I made the mistake of closing the lid on that palette and made a mess, but that's all right. We're going to swatch out these colors. I'll try to swatch off the stuff from the lid so that I don't waste it. But I've also got the ceramic palette here so I can dilute these colors because they're very concentrated. They're still wet. But I didn't want to wait, you know, I want to get those swatches done. I should probably make a little one to go inside there, but we're going to start off with this. Here we got the quinacridone magenta. I'm also going to swatch, if it's something that I have from the old line, I'm going to swatch it down here as well, just so I can compare it with the big ceramic pans I have. Oh yeah, seems to be the exact same color. Not noticing any difference there. I apologize for any glare. When it dries, obviously that will be better. Next color is Federal Red. That was such a tiny little drop, and we have so much color. That's very easy to use. So this is the new... Oh, I flip-flopped those. My goodness. Did I? Yes, I flip-flopped those. Right, there's the new color. Clean that up from the palette. Man, oh man! Well, see the old Federal Red. Looks the same to me. Pyrrole Orange. I'm going to mix that on the palette just to make sure I don't get into any of the other colors. So they're slowly releasing these colors. Very pretty. Oh, so what I did was I actually just peeled off the label from the boxes and trimmed it down so it's just the front panel where all the info was and stuck it down. And then I wrote down the transparency and the Lightfast ratings right on the label. So all of these are single pigment, by the way, which I think is kind of cool if they're just going with the single pigment colors. Next color is Signal Yellow, which is the warmer yellow. Let's see, that's the new, put that on that side. We'll compare it to the old Signal Yellow. Oh, and that's PY65. The Pyrrole Orange was PO73. The Federal Red was PR254, you know, your typical Pyrrole. Quinacridone Magenta is PR122, the typical Quinacridone Magenta. I mean, these colors are all what you would expect to find in any high quality line of color. The next color is Permanent Yellow, PY154, which is our cool yellow. And this color was also in our original set of 6 mixing colors. So the ceramic mixing color set is a split primary color set, which is really cool. So you've got, you know, you've got 2 yellows, 2 blues, 2 reds. That's what I recommend for a mixing set. They have a tube mixing set of 5, which is a CMKY set, which is your cool red, your magenta, your cool yellow, your phthalo cyan, so CYMK. CYMK. K is for black. I don't know why they call black K. And then it has a white. So it's interesting that that's why they did the way they did the tube sets versus the way they did the ceramic pan sets. And that mixing set of tubes, or 5 tubes, is $47. I've been writing down prices too, just so I can mention those as we're going. Next color is Phthalo Evergreen. That was a pretty runny color, actually, and it really got on my lid there. That was my own fault, though. I should have left it fully to dry before I even attempted to close the lid, but I was just thinking, that's a thick plastic piece in there for mixing, and then I was like, I was going to close it to see. I don't know what I was thinking. I had a momentary lapse of reason there. I'm going to draw that down with some water. I'm going to look at the undertones on that. PG7, which is your phthalo blue, a phthalo green blue shade. Yeah, it definitely has more blue undertones to it. It doesn't look as acidic as some phthalo greens I've seen. Very transparent. PG7. Phthalo cyan is the next color. And that was also in the mixing set. Very intense color. PY15:3, your typical phthalo blue green shade. And I'm going to swatch it over here just so I can compare with the phthalo cyan from the ceramic set. Very similar, I'd say. And of course, the ceramic set's dried down. Liquid poured pans though, so I assume it's the exact same paint. Next we have Prussian blue. Such a ding dong. Can't believe I closed that lid. I don't know what I was thinking there. PB27. Very pretty green leading blue. Next we have phthalo blue reddish, PB15:1. I don't... Well, I guess I did get enough there that I could swatch. You can see it's not a huge difference between that and the, I better pull that over here, and Prussian blue or phthalo blue. I still think it's a little bit more cool than neutral. So it's interesting that's a color they went with. Probably they were just trying to get the single pigment colors out of the way. Next we have ultramarine. Actually, got some of that right there. Get a little bit more of that. Very beautiful, clean blue, granulating, gorgeous. Actually, get a little bit of that over here. That is the new version, the tube version, I should say. And I heard they were having a hard time finding these ceramic pans or getting more of the ceramic pans. I don't think their ultramarine blue might be as strong as some other ultramarine blues, but it's not bad. I think it's fine. It does seem like the old phthalo cyan is stronger than the new one, but it's not dry yet, so I'd have to wait. The other ones seem to be the same that have dried. Carbon black is next. That one luckily didn't get stuck to the lid. It is light fastness of 8, it is opaque, and PVK 6. The next color is titanium white. Probably should have swatched that first before my water started to get it all dirty. And that is opaque and light fastness of 8. What's white gonna fade to? Anyway. Oxide yellow is PY42. It is opaque with a light fastness of 8. Very pretty. Actually, it doesn't look that opaque to me. It looks kind of rather transparent for a yellow ochre. I could put in a little bit more. I think if you're watering it down, you're not going to have an opacity problem with that. The next color, Oxide Red PR 101. Ooh, that is a very red PR 101. But I bet we can mix that down with, you know, add a little ultramarine blue to it and make it a little bit more like a burnt umber. So that's what we have for the colors in the 14 color set. Now let's look at pricing. So like I said, if you wanted to get all those tubes at once, it would cost you $129. So what is that, around $8 a tube, I would guess? 8 times 14. Let's see, 8 times 10 would be 80. 8 times 4 would be 32. No, it would be more than that. About 850? I don't know, I don't count. Well, I do have a calculator here. Oh my gosh. Let's just see, shall we? 129 divided by 14 equals $9.21. I was off by a bit. Was that right? I have to check my math because divided by 14. Yep, $9.21 per tube. So it's not a huge savings over buying them individually, since they are between $9 and $12 a tube. You know, unless you knew you wanted them all, it's probably a better deal just to buy what you want. Compared to the 6 large pans, I think this is the deal. There's so much paint in those pans. 6 large pans like that. I took a 15 ml tube of brown and squeezed it in there, and after it shrunk down, and it wasn't their brand, but it was just 15 ml tube. It wasn't as high as these other ones, so I'm going to say 15. There's 15 mLs in there. But for $95, you get 6 15 ml tubes plus an extra pan. I don't know. I guess maybe not. The tubes probably are a better deal. But you get the ceramic pan, so I don't know. I like that. The large pans run between $15 and $18 each versus $9 to $12 for a tube. So just to kind of give you an idea of comparison, you are getting the ceramic pan, so I'm sure that's what's factoring in the price, and you're getting some more paint. I do believe there's more paint in the ceramic pan than there is in a tube. Half pans are $7.50 from what I can see on the website. The half pan set of 12 in a metal tin is $80. So if you want 12 colors, and it does seem like those tins that they are omitting the black and white. I would have to double check. I'm just trying to see really quick because I didn't have that one open. Let's see, classic colors. No, there is a black and white in there. I'm not sure what I think they might be omitting one of the blues, 2 of the blues. I'm not sure. So let's see, does it say what colors are in there? Let's see, the 12 original colors are Federal Red, Oxide Red, that's that brownish color, Signal Yellow, Oxide Yellow, Permanent Yellow, Phthalo Evergreen, Prussian Blue, Phthalo Cyan, Ultramarine, Quinacridone Magenta, Titanium White, and Carbon Black. So what does that mean? What are they missing? They're missing the Phthalo Blue Reddish. Oh, you can already see the granulation on the Ultramarine Blue. And must be Pyrrole Orange. Those must be the 2 colors that aren't in the set of 12 half pans. You can also get the little bijou box of 8 half pans for $99 because those foam type palettes are more expensive. You can get a dot card. This dot card here is $6. And you can get the mixing set of tubes, of 5 tubes for $47, and that is your cool primate, so that, and that, if that's more your style. So there's a lot of different options as far as buying these paints, depending on what you already have for a palette, what you like to, how you like to lay things out, if your preference is tubes, half pans, the ceramic pans, sets, or individual. So I like that. Let's let this dry, and then when we come back, we're going to do some mixing. I'm back. I've had a chance to play with these different paints, and I really have enjoyed working with them. Now I want to show you my palette here. Now granted I did some painting, so I have used some of the paint, but shrinkage wise, I say they shrunk down by 1/4 to 1/3, maybe a little bit more, but because the paint is pretty liquidy in the tubes, you may experience more shrinkage with this paint than a stiffer paint consistency, so you want to keep that in mind when you're thinking about whether you want to buy these paints and if you want to buy the tubes over the ceramic pans. So the ceramic pans I felt were much more concentrated, and that's because they're dried down and you're adding water to them. The ceramic pans go from between about $15 to $18 or $20 a pan, but you're getting so much paint in here. The tubes are, I think, they're around $10, give or take either side, depending on the color, you know, the pigments used and whatnot. And I felt like I did put out a fair amount into those. I filled up those half pans to the top and they did shrink down. So I think you're getting more paint for your money in the pans, even accounting for the higher cost of the pans. And I would go with the mixing set. If I had to recommend one Tonic product, and I'm not paid to say this, I'm not earning anything off of you buying any of these products, I would definitely recommend the 6 mixing set here, because it's the colors you use a lot. They're very generously poured. You get the gorgeous ceramic pans to use however you like afterwards. The downside to that is, like, where are you going to put it? Do you have a tin you can put it in? Do you have a palette that you can put them in? That might be a little annoying for some, and they might prefer the tubes that way. You can always try a dot card for like $6, I think, if you want to see what you think of the quality of the paint before you use it. So I just want to get over that, just because I feel like, you know, dollar for dollar, I think you're getting more in the dried down ceramic pans. These did dry down well. I was a little worried because I kind of overfilled them, and then I remember I shut the lid and then they got stuck. But they did dry down well. I didn't get any cracking, granted. You know, I've been using them and it's summer, so it's kind of humid, so I probably wouldn't get any cracking anyway, but they worked well. And I think it's the same paint as they use in the pans, at least when I compared them. Swatching wise, they seem to be. So, and those haven't cracked, so no issues there. I want to show you this painting here because it's not quite done yet, and I'm going to add some mixed media to it, but I wanted to show you this painting before I added mixed media. This is on Hanamola Cezanne 100% cotton paper, which is very similar to Arches. And to me, when I have the paint in a wash, and this is just with water, I didn't use the white pigment on this at all. It was just the, what colors did I use? I used the magenta, I used the pyrrole red, I used both of the yellows, I used an ultramarine blue, I used the phthalo green, the yellow ochre, and the English red, or the Oxide Red. I do feel like you have to layer up in order to bring vibrancy. So here I just wanted to do some more just kind of playing around with it and do some mixing. These were my cool primaries, the magenta, cyan, and yellow. They mixed beautiful, vibrant secondary colors. And then I did the warm primaries, I think it's called pyrrole red, federal red, the what do they call it? Signal yellow, and the ultramarine blue. And I got more muted primaries, but they worked fine, a nice vibrant orange. But I did notice a significant drying shift when going from wet to dry on that first layer. I think these are going to be handled a lot more like Sennelier watercolors, where you are going to want to layer them up, and then as you layer them, you start to build the vibrancy. And if we look at this swatch here, like the first swatch was, I mean, it was bright enough. It was bright enough. But then when I put that second glaze down, then we got this really punchy vibrancy. And that's very similar to how Sennelier handles. So I would say if you are someone who loves Sennelier paints, but you're looking for like a made in the USA version, this might be a really good option for you. I don't know ounce for ounce which is cheaper, and I'm sure it's really going to depend on where you buy it. But it does, I think probably if you are in the US, these will be cheaper than Sennelier. Of course, you have a limited color palette range. I think they might only have like 15 colors. I did see they've released an ultramarine purple, which is ultramarine and magenta. It's a mix. But these are all single pigment colors here. So that might be their base pigment colors, and they may be going to expand by mixing from those. I'm not sure. I wish it was a good burnt umber, or just like a less reddish brown here, like a PBR7. Maybe that's coming. I'm not sure. But as of yet, I did not see it on their website. The white is not very opaque, although I did dab some white onto this mix here, and it does look pretty opaque actually, and that was from the dried pan. So let me just show you that really quick. So, you know, I think it will suffice. It is a titanium white, but you know, it's not gouache, but as far as an opaque white watercolor, it's pretty good. Now, these colors are extremely transparent, and I didn't see any chalkiness. Even when I looked at my mixing areas here, which I'll just hold this up to the camera. Hopefully it'll focus in, but no sedimentary, silty chalkiness here. There's some granulation in some of the colors, but there's nothing that I would call chalky or flocculation. It all seems to be legit granulation, where you would find that like in the ultramarine blue. But yeah, mixed beautifully. Did get a little bit of pretty separation there in the purples when I was mixing them. This is a mixed media piece I did with mostly watercolor, but you can see it played well with other media. I have some temper sticks on there. I have some fine liner, I have some white gel pen, I have some chalk pencil and colored pencil, and it worked really well with it. One thing that I appreciated about this brand was that I really didn't see a lot of bronzing here. On that phthalo cyan, I put it a little too thick there, and I can just see the little hint of a little bit of shininess. But if used, and this is on cellulose paper, which can be more prone to that, but as used normally, I don't think you're going to get that shiny bronzy effect, that bronzing effect that we get with some, especially watercolors that are a little bit less expensive. Not chalky, not shiny. It's kind of like right in the middle where you want it. This here, and this is where it really kind of made me feel like, yeah, it needs layers. It needs layers to really be punchy, because what I did with this is a cotton bookmark and cotton paper, watercolor paper bookmark, and I wet the back and I wet the front, and I stuck it down on a piece of plastic to paint, because I didn't want the bookmark to warp, and I wanted to go all the way out to the edges with my color. And I put down my sunset colors pretty boldly. I think I used like the lemon yellow, the signal yellow, the pyrrole orange, federal, actually I'm not sure if I used the orange or not, federal red, magenta, and mixed that with a little bit of ultramarine, got the blue, and then you know, put in the color for the water. But I noticed it really faded a lot. Now, the paper was really wet, and the wetter the paper, the more you're going to get a shift, drying shift, but it faded a lot. Like, it was really, really pale pastel when I was done. And I thought I put an adequate amount of paint there. So after it was dry, I sketched on my people, and I'm like, I just need a punchier color back there. So then I went over it with some colored pencil, and then I didn't like the grain. So I'm like, well, let me just try going over it with watercolor again to fill in. And I like that much better. But that was 2 layers, and I really feel like it feels like the drying shift is a little bit more than what I like in a paint. I like a little bit more of a punchy color. So then when I went in here with, on dry paper with my paints, I decided to do each color and just kind of let them bleed in together and just do some avocado shapes, because I'd seen Omar Wen does these really fun sketchbook videos. Check her out on YouTube. She's very inspiring. She does a lot of work in sketchbooks, and she did what she calls an ugly sketchbook, I think, where she was just doing random fruits and vegetables and letting them bleed together. And I know a lot of people have been inspired by her, and that's kind of what I thought about doing, just some really loose from memory avocados. And then I thought I would just do these together and let them touch and see what the colors did when they moved together. And this is one layer, and just kind of wet into wet blending. And they're bright enough. They're bright enough on dry paper, but I think that these paints are really going to shine and be the most useful for people that like to do a lot of layering, because they're very, very transparent. You're not going to build up chalkiness. It's not going to lift up the previous layers. These just, they perform like a traditional watercolor. Not kind of like your super vibrant, knock your socks off, modern watercolors, but I think even though the colors they chose are your more modern pigments, they handle more like a classical watercolor, more like a Winsor Newton or a Sennelier. If you get my meaning. I'm not saying that to put them down. I'm saying that to give you appropriate expectations of how these paints are going to handle. But I mean, the background wash was the watercolor, then with some temper sticks around the edges. Then I layered up some more watercolor around the edges. So the color is very buildable. Sometimes when you have colors and you try to layer them up, they just end up lifting what you have underneath, and it's not a great look. And they're frustrating because you can't build glazes because they lift up what's underneath. These don't. These are very transparent. I think it's because they don't have a lot of filler in them, but for whatever reason, they do seem to need that layering up for the really vibrant colors. I'm going to do more to this painting, but I wanted to show it to you before I did more, just so you could kind of see the velvety kind of matte-ness of the paint once it dries, which honestly, for watercolor, you don't really want it glossy, but you don't want it chalky. And this is neither. It's a nice base. It's a nice base. If you're a mixed media artist, you might really like this. Now, I think this set is pretty affordable, honestly. The price of the tubes, open stock being around $10, give or lower or upper depending on the pigment. The set of 14 being $129. So that's, would that be, let's see, that would be less than $10 a tube. Same quality between the tubes and the pans, so I would say go for the pans if you're on the fence, because $95 gets you 6 full pans and an empty one that you can put whatever you want in. And I just feel like these are much more concentrated because of the amount of shrinkage that I got in the half pans there. But I didn't refill. I filled it to the top, maybe a little domed, and then I let it dry out. But that's nothing. I don't think it's like it for a paint that comes out that liquidy. That's about right. So do I recommend these? Yes, I would recommend them. I think they're a wonderfully made USA paint. I think they're a good value for money. They handle really well. But I'd have to say they're not going to be the swoosh all the way across your paper. I'm thinking they might not have. I'm thinking they don't have Ox Gall in them, and that would make sense. Let me check on that. I just checked and they do not use any animal products in their paint, so there's no Ox Gall. They have modern surfactants, they say, but that would explain why there isn't, like you can see here, when the colors were drifting wet into wet, there is a little bit more of a choppy chunkiness there. I mean, here we have a little bit more of a flow between colors, but you're not going to get that whoosh that you get with core colors. And honestly, I have to say we are very lucky in America to have so many fine watercolor makers, between the brand new St. Louis Art Supply and their Tonic watercolors, to Golden's Core, to Daniel Smith, to Da Vinci. We're really lucky. And then all the little like handmade paint makers too. We are very lucky here. Utrecht, I think they make in Brooklyn. So we have a really nice selection of paint makers. Now all the paints here are rated 7 or 8 on the blue wool scale, which is another light fastness scale, and anything over 6 is supposed to be sufficiently light fast. So these are going with the more light fast pigments. I didn't see anything here that gave me pause as far as the pigments they used. I love that they're all single pigment colors in this set. So I mean, not everybody wants a white and a black, so that's kind of too bad for this. And if you buy the tube mixing set, you're getting the yellow, the phthalo cyan, and the magenta plus a white and a black, and that might not be the best option. I mean, that's not what I would look for with a watercolor mixing set. This mixing set here, even the dot card, I think is a much better option if you're looking for a watercolor mixing set. But they chose to do it that way. I'm not sure, maybe for maybe they have more of a designer customer base. Maybe they cater more towards like art schools and art students and commercial artists that would want that mixing like a printer mixes, for instance. I'm not sure, but they have a lot of different ways you can acquire these paints, from open stock to in the open stock pans, open stock tubes, or sets. So you can kind of figure out what is best for your budget, honestly. And they have half pans too. The half pans, I have a set of 12 half pans for $80 in a little tin. So that kind of falls lower than the 6 ceramic pan set and the tube set. So plenty of ways to get it. They also have they do have a set that's the 3 half pans of the magenta, cyan, and yellow, and I think that's $20. So, you know, if you want that like very basic mixing set, mix them all together to make your black, add water to make your lighter colors, use the white of the paper. I mean, that's gonna do it for $20 too if you want to test it out and have a good amount of paint to play with, because those half pans will be dried down. And I reckon that a fully filled, dried down half pan is probably about half of what's in one of these tubes. So yeah, I bet, because usually 5 ml is equal to a half pan, extruded half pan, or if you were to let it dry down, repour, dry down, repour. And this is 12 mLs, but it's a kind of a looser paint. So I would say you probably have 2 half pans of color in one of these. And I would say you have 7 half pans according to there. And I would believe it. You got 7 half pans of paint here. So it does get, I think it gets, I'm not sure. I can't remember what the half pans were. Did I write it down? $7.50. Half pans are $7.50. So this is the best bang for your buck. This is probably the second best bang for your buck, and then the half pans. But you know what you like, right? You know what's going to suit you best. Maybe it's a dot card to test it out. You know, you probably have an 1/8 to 1/4 of pans worth of paint on that dot card. So you could definitely do a couple paintings and see what you think for $6, right? So there you have it. I want to thank St. Louis Art Supply for sending me this set and valuing my opinion enough to take a gamble with me reviewing them. I guess it's not that big of a gamble because I've reviewed these ceramic pans before. I'm happy with these. This is a great little palette. I think I'll probably add a burnt umber here. I would love a sap green in the set, but as you can see, the beautiful greens I can mix with that phthalo evergreen, either adding it with the signal yellow or a little pyrrole orange or yellow ochre or the permanent yellow. I can get all the greens that I need to, because that's such a nice strong transparent green. It's really easy to alter that. But I would like a darker brown. I was taking the brown and mixing it with mixing it with actually a Prussian blue to get more of a neutral brown. Because if I mixed this brown here, if I mix that with the ultramarine, like I usually do, like burnt sienna ultramarine to make a dark brown, then it would give me more of like eggplanty color, because that's so red. I probably could mix it with some of the black, honestly. Well, let's give that a little try. Let's see what happens if we do that. Because I know like some brands, they do, their burnt umber is, or burnt sienna is actually a PR 101 plus a black color. So let's do that. I'll do it on the edge of my palette here. Grab a little bit of black. See what that looks like. You know, that's not bad. I mean, I tend to avoid black in mixes because I know it tends to make it kind of, it can make it kind of muddy, kind of dull, because black tends to be really opaque. And they rate their black as an opaque black. But honestly, I don't find their colors to be opaque, even the ones that they rated as semi-opaque, because the pigment would be semi-opaque. I feel like they're so finely milled that it doesn't really register. The only one that's not superly fine milled, well, you know what, you do see a little texture in that black, honestly, which is weird because it's not really a granulating color. I see lots of texture in the ultramarine blue, but the other colors are pretty smooth, honestly. But then that's only one layer, but I do think that's a little dull. That's a little dull for a brown for me. I would definitely prefer to have a PBR 7 brown if they're looking to add to the range and they want my opinion. That's what I would recommend. But I think it's good paint. I think it's good paint if you find yourself in a St. Louis art supply store and you want to pick it up or take a chance with an order. You have my blessing. And as far as mixed media, if you like to do mixed media, I think this worked really well with that, because layering on top of that was no problem. I had no glossy spots to contend with, and I'm a happy camper with these. So anyway, I want to thank you so very much for watching. Please keep in mind that these were sent to me for review, and I just want to let you know that because I feel like you have the choice. You should always know whether somebody's given a product to review or they purchased it with their own money, because it just lets you weigh the opinions a little, you know, it gives you a little perspective, lets you take things with a grain of salt if you want to. I think I'm being completely honest, but I also just want to make sure you have that transparency. And yeah, they're fun. They're fun. You've got my pros, you got my cons. I'll recap it in the video description, and I'll link to the shop so you can find them if you want to buy them. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye!